we do this show on a regular basis, and we talk about it, and every once in a while somebody calls in and shares their story, like they went through the house, or, I was abused as a kid, and I just wish that, or I was in an abusive marriage, and I just wish that Avon House would have been around then, or whatever it might be. But people share their stories, and I always figure that, if doing all of this, if it would just get into one dude's mind that, hey, you know what, there's a whole support system here, because it is not accepted to knock your wife around in any way, physically or verbally or mentally.
Right.
And if we got through to one dude, then this whole, like, public affairs thing that we're doing is worth it, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yep. I totally agree. Especially with this transitional housing. I mean, the fact that we can only house 2 families at a time, we wish that we can house 8 to 10 families at a time. I mean, we are, besides Gary does have transitional housing, but they only take Gary residents. So we have a huge opportunity here that we open it up to all the communities that we serve. So it's not just like we are going to be able to save families from Hammond.
And we do serve 6 different cities: East Chicago, Highland, Hammond, Whiting, Munster, and Griffith. So our services do spread out a lot more than just the city of Hammond.
It's basically North Township plus Calumet Township, plus Griffith, which wishes it was part of North Township, believe it or not. But that's another issue. It's another issue altogether. So I didn't know that. That was the 6 Whiting, EC, Hammond, Munster, Highland, Griffith, kind of in that area. And you would think, by just making prejudgments, that the majority come from Hammond and EC. And that is not always the case.
No.
There are a lot of them that come out of Griffith and Highland and Munster.
Oh, yes.
And you would be surprised at some of the numbers on these things. Anyways, 219-845-1100. Let me ask a question. DFH, if we got through to kept one dude from knocking his wife around, I think this whole thing would be a success, don't you think?
That, like I said, that breaks the chain of domestic violence, and it's usually generational. But I just want to say one thing, Jed, about the increase in senior abuse. You mentioned that the children and the grandchildren are monsters. I'm going to kind of correct you. They're criminals. They're not monsters. They're criminals, which is there's a big difference. But I've been doing a lot of investigating on getting to the males in regards to this, and there's anger management. Everything is after the offense. All the treatments are after the offense, and my whole contention is let's get them before. And these programs are called anger management courses, which I absolutely hate the name of that. There's a stigma on an abuser anyway. Then you really put a label of anger management. I really, I prefer to change the name as domestic education, so we can stop this before. There's not a lot out there. There's not a helpline for a guy that says, I'm ready to tear into my wife or girlfriend or my kids. What should I do? That's just not available, and that's what I would love to become available. Let's get it before the abuse and the offense happens, and because it just, to me, everything feels after the fact.
I agree, but at the same time, and at the same token, a lot of times we're not even made aware of it until a victim is brought to us, and that male has to, at that point, deal with the fact that the secret's out. So unless somebody's truly going through some real-life changes and ready to admit that they have a problem, it's no different than an addict or people have to be willing to say, I have a problem, and that's the difficult part of it. Usually, on the flip side, it's the victim that comes forward and kind of lets that secret out. So,
and I have some friends that have had some issues, and they're always calling me because they know this is a passion of mine, and I experienced it. And I'm grateful that they feel they can call me in confidence, but I would love to have 1,000 guys call me, and it took me a long time for my friends and acquaintances to feel comfortable calling me, because they have that stigma of, I'm weak, I'm a male, I'm not supposed to call, it's a sign of weakness. To me, calling me and me talking you off the edge of the cliff, you're more of a man than anybody to be able to have the guts to do that.
You know, I got to agree with one part of what he's saying here, in that, especially when we do with the Haven House, and we talk about making sure that the children and the women basically are being served, and that is the utmost importance of all that you guys do. And it's really not your concern, to be honest with you, that to go into the home and to try to fix these situations. It's not what you guys do. Some guy, is angry. He physically abuses his wife. There's children involved. They wind up at the house, and you guys do like sainthood kind of work,
Right.
and
Absolutely.
everybody involved with it. But I agree with you on the other side, Dave, in that there's really no education campaigns to show guys how to deal with this. There's no real social network where if a guy has been prone to it, especially if his dad, and he used to watch his dad physically abuse his mom, and he sees it happening, he feels it coming up on him and so forth. I worked in social services in Oakland, California, and at South Lake Center for Mental Health here in Maryville when I was coming up through the ranks, and I look back on all the women that came through there, and I don't even think I counseled one man about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know.
First and foremost is the safety of the victim and the children.
We understand
First
that.
and foremost.
But there is a point where you believe, that you feel like if the guy had called you at that moment, that you'd be able to talk him off the ledge. But there's
Absolutely.
really not that resource that I've ever heard of.
Right, I know, and I think it's a two-prong effect. Again, the safety of the victim and the children are paramount. That's first and foremost. But to me, just getting them out of there is curing the main symptom, of it. But I would rather cure the whole disease. And I know even if I get 50 phone calls and if I could talk two guys off the cliff, I would get a huge sense of accomplishment from that.
You got it, man. Thanks a lot.